Om Namo Venkateshaya to all of you. Today we are going to decode Saturn placement of your birth chart, and we will be going house-wise, right from the first house till the 12th house in a lot of detail. Saturn is one of those planets which is highly misunderstood, highly fear-mongered across the internet, and even misunderstood in form of the readings that you would see. And you will also see that a lot of people would not even acknowledge the blessings they have in their real life through Saturn. Saturn is one of those few planets that can actually make or break a lot of things in your birth chart. It holds a lot of power in your birth chart, given that apart from its own placement, it has the power to aspect three different houses within your entire birth chart that would be revolving around different themes of your life. It would be creating different challenges within your life, and it will also reward you according to those challenges. A very overrated term, which is as always associated with Saturn, is the fact that it always supports delays over denial. But the reality is, Saturn is like a protector. It does not really care whether you actually enjoy the pressure it is trying to give you. It does not really care whether you misunderstand it or not. It does not really care whether you are undergoing an extremely hard phase in your life. Its fundamental intrinsic nature is to create obstacles and challenges within your life and then waits to see your reaction to all of these challenges. It is one of those planets which has the power to hold your karma as well as the rewards associated with your karma. And that is why Saturn owns the 10th and the 11th natural signification zodiac signs or rashis, as we like to say it, which is Capricorn and Aquarius, that comes continuously. Saturn is also one of those planets which is slowest in terms of transiting in a different zodiac sign from where it is placed, because it will take approximately 2.5 years to actually even move from one sign to another in your birth chart. Saturn always creates challenges in your life and waits for you to react to them in the correct fashion so that you can convert these challenges into opportunities. And you definitely will learn one very important thing with Saturn, which is acceptance. It is not about delay or denial at all. It is about acceptance. It is about being protected at the cost of misunderstanding something which you are always desiring for, and Saturn will steal it away from you, because it might not be the most optimal path which you might be navigating towards. And that is what Saturn does. So whenever you are trying to read Saturn in your birth chart, always remember that the house in which this Saturn is placed will be extremely good for you, irrespective of the challenges it is going to bring in the themes of your life. Saturn, being the justice god, will never do injustice to the house where it is being placed, but it will definitely give you a lot of troubles in the way you perceive it. And the houses where it will be aspecting, which is the 3rd house, the 7th house, and the 10th house away from its own placement, are the places where you will actually see challenges manifesting in form of circumstances in your life, and it is your duty to overcome them. Saturn has this quintessential vibe to it that it will never let you settle down to be a silver. It will always pressurize you to the extent that you will break down in the hope that you eventually become a diamond. But after you have become a diamond, it is very much possible that you have no longer the desire to become a diamond itself. So you are in hold of your abundance in your life, but still living in denial about it. That is how powerful Saturn tries to create a legacy in your life, and therefore it will only give you those rewards at a much later stage. Many a times you would feel that this delay is actually equivalent to a denial. But what you neglect over here strongly is the fact that you were protected. Protected in the ways that you yourself couldn't contemplate. And sometimes it takes you multiple years to even realize what Saturn exactly did to protect you. And then when you look back at your life, let's say back 5 years since you have came forward in your life in the future, you would realize that no, some things manifested for you, some disappointments that came your way have only made you stronger. And that's what the intention was. Because today, whatever you define yourself to be is what Saturn really shaped out of you. If you have planets in your chart with a lot of Saturn nakshatras associated with it, then you will also see a lot of money making opportunities that comes and paves way in your life. Always remember, Saturn also does give rewards because it is the natural significator of Aquarius, which is the sign for rewards. And therefore, you will also see this, that the rewards and success which is given by Saturn is much more immense compared to what Sun can give you, compared to what Jupiter can bless you with, compared to what a courageous Mars can grant you. Saturn will make sure that you literally provide a legacy related to that house only if you are able to succumb to all of these obstacles, challenges, and plethora of circumstances that creates in your life on a daily basis in terms of your experiences and the way you react to it in the correct way. Many a times you would see that the person has not been able to reach the pinnacle potential which Saturn really promises in their birth chart. But nevertheless, it is one of the most misunderstood protectors. And you will also relate to this in the form of mythological or the historical stories that are associated with Saturn in any culture. And therefore, let's decode this Saturn placement in a non-fear mongering way to see what is there for each of you in order to decode your birth chart. Before I move ahead, if you have not followed me on Twitter, do go ahead and follow me up on Twitter, where I will be posting a lot of content on a regular basis regarding transit updates and many different insights regarding astrology that I can provide you with. And in case you have not subscribed to this channel, feel free to please share and subscribe. Let's talk about what happens when Saturn comes to the 5th house of the birth chart. Now, when Saturn is in the 5th house, there is an unpopular opinion that I am going to speak over here. The person actually becomes extremely romantic. Yes, this is quite contrary to the popular opinion that would say that Saturn demands a little bit of logic, it demands a little bit of emotionlessness. But the reality is that a person with Saturn in the 5th house is actually very sensitive deep inside. For them, that emotional connect, that intellectual vibe with the other person means a lot. And therefore, for them, commitment is exclusive to romance. They cannot induce romance into a relationship which does not have a potential in the future for them. For them, this mutual understanding is very important. That mutual consent is very important. That open communication and straightforwardness in terms of mutually understanding each other is extremely important. If any of these check parameters do not exist, then they do not translate that relationship towards romance at all. But in case this actually tick marks or check marks all of these parameters, in that case you will see that Saturn in the 5th house is one of the most romantic placements you can ever get in any of the birth charts. Saturn is all about making the other person feel a sense of belonging. So if such a person whose 5th house is being driven by Saturn, their intelligence is bifold. And they know exactly what the other person wants during romance. They know exactly what the other person needs are. And without even them mentioning, it is being taken care of. When Saturn is in the 5th house, such people are very good gift givers. They think through a lot of times, they understand the vibe of the other person, they understand what the other person requires at the moment, and they are going to surprise you in very beautiful ways beyond your imagination as well sometimes, that would really make you super happy if you are in a relationship with such a person. Such a person especially if Saturn is retrograde here, and same goes for ninth house also, the other trikon, you will see that they end up working in a completely different occupation from initially what they have studied or prepared for. Such a person might be a person who has studied civil engineering but became a programmer, executing codes, which is essentially a computer science thing. Or such a person studied computer science, again a technical field, because your fifth house of intelligence and Saturn is related to technology. At the end of the day, they started managing people and became excellent managers. They have a very deep challenge when it comes to understanding other people around them, and they have this rigidity about their experiences, especially regarding relationships, because the third aspect of Saturn from here goes to the seventh house. So they become very selective, and they always desire that they are a mutually exclusive partner, even on the first date, for the other person. This does not make them delusional. They are actually super practical. The fact that a Saturn in fifth house person has decided to go on a first date with you means that they have already done a lot of due diligence with you, checked your vibe, and you have tick marked them, and therefore it is almost a guarantee that you are going to come into a committed relationship with them. So this is the level of evaluation and analytics such a person is going to bring. And in case you have not subscribed to this channel, feel free to please share and subscribe. This person also will use a lot of technology oriented stock trading techniques and speculation or predictive analytics in order to gain a lot of wealth. Their ultimate desire is to find financial stability which can provide for their family, because the 10th from here eventually becomes the second house. So these are the set of people who acquire a lot of knowledge beyond their curriculum, beyond their coursework, and then they end up applying all that knowledge to gain or amass a wealth which is no close to abundance any other placement can give. On top of that, such people are always driven away from social media. They always feel that they are being jinxed by their social media presence. They feel that other people around them become jealous of them very fast, and other people around them are not able to accept the fact that things are working out for such people. Such a person also complains that whenever I have posted something on social media regarding even the smallest life update, I have seen some sort of a backlash. So I am better off by staying away from it. I am better off by being anonymous. And such people are the ones who are extremely active over Reddit as well. Saturn in the fifth house also makes sure that you never settle for less when it comes to knowledge acquisition and consecutively applying that. So such people will deliberately pick up jobs that are difficult, deliberately make hard choices where they have to suffer through a lot of consequences, and they have to put in a lot of due diligence. They are excited by the things that people cannot attempt, because they think that this is their unique selling point. This is what the differentiator for them becomes, that I am able to execute things which other people are not able to. But at the same time, they develop very strong imposter syndromes and are prone to a lot of disappointments when they feel that things are not working out in their favor. Such people make a lot of meticulous plans. They are very detail oriented, but the problem lies whenever things deviate even a little bit from their plan, their inertia hits back to them, and then they start feeling imposter syndrome whether they are good or not. The best possible way to navigate a Saturn in fifth house is to make sure that you have contingency plans of even your existing contingency plans. You are ready with a plan B, and then your plan A's probability of manifestation increases by-fold. You cannot afford to be an impulsive person, even in the name of optimism. You have already experienced this, that when you are very realistic about things, which may come out as slightly pessimistic to people around, but the fact is that you have increased the probability of manifesting things faster when you accumulate towards that. Such a person also might be strongly related towards investments. They are driven by the fact that we will accumulate money in order to provide for the family, and this is something very, very beautiful about them and makes them wealthy in the long run as well. Saturn in the fifth house meticulously also seeks spirituality, but they like to keep it very secretive. They will not like to reveal this in front of a lot of people, but at the same time, they are seamless at meditation. This is something that they discover after a lot of failed iterations, you can say, because when Saturn is in the fifth house, their mind is not at peace and they keep ruining, and they would advocate that meditation has helped them a lot to take control of their mind's presence. And once they are in control of their mind's presence, you're going to see that such person can leap towards faith, can leap towards higher willpower like crazy. But at the same time, initially you would see that such person has the ability to self-reject themselves quite often, and they always question their intelligence. They would question themselves whether what they have learned is enough to apply or not. And in case somebody tells them that you need to manage so and so task, or you need to manage a set of 2 or 3 people, they feel that they are being burdened by it. Not because they are not capable to manage them around, but simply because they develop an imposter syndrome that if tomorrow one of these 3 people who I am supposed to manage goes away, in their absence, can I be the person who can execute their tasks with equal amount of precision? If the answer to that is yes, then only the Saturn in the fifth house person is going to take accountability or manage that other person. Otherwise, they develop a strong imposter syndrome and they stay away from it. Such a person is also more suited to do individual contributor roles, and eventually they transition towards that very strongly. They also find a very beautiful solace in the bhakti of Devi, and you would see that such a person becomes extremely natural at mantra chanting. But sometimes, because of the Saturn's malefic influence on the fifth house, such a person tends to stay away from a lot of sadhana, but at the same time they are also attracted towards darker form of sadhana much more. Although they do not intend to end up causing chaos into their life, but a Saturn in the fifth house person should be very, very careful in case they have initiated into mantra chanting, because their experimentation may sometimes cause sabotage in their own lives. Also, when Saturn is in the fifth house, such a person has a very karmic orientation and detailed relationship with their children. They become extremely possessive parents. They make sure that they spoil their children with a lot of plethora of resources which they feel they could have received in their own childhood. But at the same time, they are able to mend relationships with their children at a much later age when their children have matured quite often, because they would constantly be misunderstood by them. They were trying to do something for the better of the children, but the children are going to act rebellious and try to drift apart from them to the extent that it creates almost like a disagreement like situation with their progeny very, very often. At the same time, Saturn in the fifth house ensures that you will be amassing a lot of wealth. And again, this is something very closely correlated with the fourth house Saturn to a certain extent, that you will not be able to enjoy the pleasures of that wealth alone. Unlike the Saturn in the second house, here you would be actually consuming a lot of portion of your wealth, a lot of quantum of your wealth in enjoying the pleasures of life by yourself. But at the same time, this is going to be divided among your family. This is going to be used to expedite the needs of the people who you love quite often as well. And many a times you're gonna actually not feel that there is a need for you to expend or deliberately help people around you, but still you are compelled into that zone. You try to run away from responsibility when Saturn comes into the fifth house, but responsibility finds doors for you again and again, and then you are telling yourself forcefully that okay, maybe I am the chosen one, maybe I am the person who can execute, and I cannot really take a shortcut from here. Saturn in the fifth house person in the initial stages of their life will always try to take a lot of shortcuts. Unfortunately, none of those shortcuts eventually work out for them, and when that happens, they get super frustrated about it, and then they decide that I need to take the road not taken. FT. Robert Frost, you can say. But the idea being that yes, once they have decided to take that road not taken, I already told, right, that they have a deliberate tendency to eventually make hard choices. They actually manage to manifest abundance because they deliberately have chosen obstacles that can be converted into opportunities like none other. At the same time, you will see that Saturn in the fifth house makes sure that after all of these problems that have been created in your life, you enjoy support from your network, you enjoy a wide network of colleagues, and eventually you also see very good amount of desire manifestations through this. More importantly, this placement also does not provide you the luxury of being non-confrontational about your fears. There would be a lot of fears and nervousness that is going to accompany you throughout life, but you will eventually face yourself, because Saturn in the fifth house is all about facing your inner demons. And when you actually manage to overcome this inner demon of yours, you realize that the only limiter in your entire life has been your own belief. The moment you decide that my potential is actually limitless, Saturn in the fifth house ensures that you go towards the sky and literally touch it and beyond. And that is what is so worthy noting about this particular placement. And in case you have not subscribed to this channel, feel free to please share and subscribe,